Right, Alan, this is a question from a member called Andrew, who says we're seeing a draconian clampdown around the world on free speech and many proposed draconian policies in countries like the UK, Australia, America, Germany. Does the panel see this being coordinated by higher powers, or is it simply a coincidence?
Thank you. Can you read all three out? Because we got a timer. Sorry, Adam. So that question's clear. Thank you.
Okay. This is from Jane, who's a member. Would it be possible to ask the panel what they know and what they understand about the Tony Blair Institute?
Great. Thank you. The Tony Blair Institute, what you know and think of it?
This is from a Tony Jones, who says, how do we get the millions of Britons who do not understand what is going on and indeed vehemently deny and even ridicule us to see the truth and help put an end to this madness?
So we're going to pick one of them, then we're going to come out, and anyone that's speaking, and I can see some of you down there, come out to where Zoe is with the mic and stand up, please. So let's go in this order. Pick one of them, Ben, and respond if you would, please.
Yeah, so I'd like to take two of them, I think, Adam. I can take two of them together. The first one was about whether there's a kind of conspiracy theory against free speech in the West and Tony Blair's Institute. Well, they kind of go hand in hand, don't they? But joking apart, Western civilization at the moment is being threatened. We see it through a British prism, but this, and I'm going to go back to liberalism, this pursuit of liberalism, this kind of we are everyone, every immigrant has every right to be here as much as any British citizen does, the promotion of individuals at the expense of families, community, tribes, and nation states is doing in Western civilization. The reason they cast those of us who wish to cut immigration back as being far right is because they wish to push back at those of us who believe in the nation state. I'm a Brexiteer. I believe in a proud, independent, sovereign United Kingdom with borders. You can't have a United Kingdom. You literally can't have a United Kingdom without borders. But if you look across Western civilization, borders are being taken down everywhere. Europe has willfully taken its borders down. You can't think of a more stupid thing to do. Germany has woken up to it. Germany is now beginning to put its borders back in place. So there is a move against nation states, which is undermining Western civilization. And Tony Blair is definitely part of that madness. Whether or not Klaus Schwab is pulling everyone's strings or not remains to be determined. But, I'll quickly wind up. When you put big money together with big power, as they do in Davos at the World Economic Forum, and no minutes are taken at those meetings, you do not know what they've discussed, we, the people, need to be bloody suspicious.
Okay. I'm going to take up the conspiracy question as well. I think about this slightly differently from Ben, in the sense that censorship and authoritarianism has always been something that was central to a reactionary state. And what shifted is the notion that actually censorship and curtailment is actually good for society. And so people do this because they think it's in the best interests of particular groups to be defended and protected using authoritarian methods. And we have to be a bit more nuanced in understanding that these things are not coming from a state apparatus of some kind of reactionary notion. It's actually about people thinking this is in the best interest of society in general. And so the question becomes, how do we get underneath that to be able to both understand why people think the way they do and how we dismantle those arguments. So I think that for me is going to be the challenge that lies ahead. It's not the nasty people in uniforms that are doing this stuff. It's liberal consciousness who think that this is the best way for society to proceed.
Can I just ask you as well, Connolly, though, because you've been an advisor to the government, you've got an MBE, you're very well recognised, and you meet a lot of these people and you give them advice. I hear that point, but in terms of having an impact on the political class versus having an impact on the public, where do you think the most important thing is, and how do you see that really playing out?
I mean, Alan, I run a charity in probably the most liberal sector in this country. So I have to deal with all of these issues on a daily basis in terms of the notions of women's rights as opposed to trans rights, the issue of race, two-tier policing. All these questions get thrown up. And I think that the problem we've got is the discussion we're having tonight. Where can you have this discussion elsewhere outside of this room? I mean, we can pat ourselves on the back, but what happens after people leave this hall? How do we go back to our communities, our schools, and have these discussions? Our trade unions that are also, influenced by the prevailing consensus. And I think that really it's not about picking one particular sector. We have to fight in the terrain that we live and work in.
Thank you. Claire.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it that the political class in different countries around the world share a worldview. But that doesn't mean, so they share a worldview. It doesn't mean they all kind of get together and plan it all. I mean, first of all, it gives them far too much credit. Secondly, the sort of form that it takes is that we get laws brought into the British Parliament that they've just cut and paste because it kind of passed through in Denmark, or it passed through in Canada, or it passed through in Australia. But they're like cut and paste. It's so badly done that they kind of cut and paste and forgot to change some of the language, so it doesn't make any sense in the UK. And I've seen them do that on several occasions. But that's kind of like sharing information. It's not, again, this sort of like grand conspiracy. Anyway, I sort of half don't want to get drawn into it, except that one of the things that always dawns on me is that it might make people feel better to imagine that it's being planned elsewhere. And people spend an inordinate amount of their life and energy talking about what they're doing, whereas I think the failing's on our side. And I wish we spent as much time and energy thinking about what we should do rather than what we think they are doing. Because actually we need to build an international movement of solidarity. I mean, it is disgraceful to me that what's happened in Brazil is not absolutely a major concern in the UK. The closing down of, these are international trends. This is not this, of course I completely understand, by the way, what Ben says, which is national sovereignty means a political elite that needs to be answerable to us, and they have nothing but contempt for their own workers. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be internationalists either, right? I want to believe in the British sovereignty, but I also want to care about what's happening in different countries and give them a bit of solidarity on free speech.